Of calling parents racist, liberal comedian Bill Maher calling out the left's smear campaign against moms and dads who turned out big for Glenn Youngkin. The lefty host schooling guest Michael Eric Dyson over critical race theory.
They're not objecting to black history being taught. There are other things going on in the schools. Can we just, like separating children by race and describing them as either oppressed or oppressor? I mean, there are children coming home who feel traumatized by this. That's what parents are objecting to.
Katie, do you think Michael Eric Dyson really believes that this is all about whether schools are teaching the history of slavery? Do you think he really believes that?
I think that Michael Eric Dyson is a racist, and this week that he deduced and degraded Winsome Sears by calling her a black mouth moving, speaking about white supremacist ideas. So I think that he likes critical race theory. I think he doesn't want real American history to be taught because it shows the promise of America and that we can get over really tough things in this country and come together despite our skin color. Instead, he wants to continue to separate people by race because that's his ideology. And it's not just now. I mean, he's had this ideology for years and years and years, and he gets a pass as a professor at Georgetown, I believe, and he continues to spew this kind of hateful rhetoric. So I do think that he wants critical race theory taught because it aligns with his very racist ideology and his statements when it comes to anybody who has a differing opinion, especially if you're a black woman in Virginia who gets elected by parents of all different stripes and backgrounds because you're concerned not just about critical race theory, but about other issues of education in the state.
Glenn Youngkin famously said he wants everything about this country's history taught, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, and so I recommend, can I recommend an article?
Please.
Permission? Danny Barefoot is his name. He did a focus group of suburban women in Virginia. They had voted for Ralph Northam and Biden and then flipped to Glenn Youngkin. So I want to say, what do they have to say? Well, it wasn't about critical race theory for them. The education issues were very broad. It was in, the fact that learning loss from COVID shutdowns were really on their minds. Falling test scores, they're concerned about their children not being able to compete. The fact that you have school closures that continued, a little bit better now, but the whole mask mandate thing went back and forth. Also, the safety of students. Don't forget what happened in Loudoun County. Yeah. That was on local news all across Virginia. And Glenn Youngkin had an applause line about bringing and offering advanced math in every high school in Virginia. That was an applause line. So that's not about critical race theory. That's about parents who want their kids to be able to compete.
People clapped for math?
Yeah.
Wow. That wouldn't have been me.
It.
That would have sat right in my hands. Greg, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, the funny thing about that, the Bill Maher thing, is there's a huge blind spot for people that favor CRT. They can't show us the good parts. So they go, what do you got wrong with it? And so then Bill Maher will say, this is the problem. But they don't see that as the problem. They see that as the advantage or the positive attributes of CRT. So it's like when you ask somebody about CRT, what they will tell you is exactly what scares people. It's like, yeah, we're creating this, this oppression politics. It's about the oppressor versus the oppression. We're getting kids at a very young age to accept the fact that this is a racist society and that your parents are probably racist because they're in that society. But you got to, I would always go back to the science. No child is equipped with enough brain matter to deal with race or gender, especially when you see that the parents can't even address these topics without beating each other up. Lastly, Dyson believes that this is like basically just white parents, right? Worried about their white kids. No, it's a lot of non-whites who realize that instilling this kind of righteous victimhood. And it can quickly turn any promising overachiever into some petulant failure. Because if you become successful through victimhood, then you'll only be successful through victimhood because that'll quickly replace the same thing with any kind of woke ideology. It replaces a deeper thought that you should be chasing.
Michael Eric Dyson has a name similar to yours, Harold Ford Jr. Would you like to talk about that or the actual topic?
That is the strangest transition.
That's a segue.
Yes.
The Michael Eric Dyson, I don't think he's not a racist. I think you should have him on the show. You should have him on your show. I think you'd find him interesting. You guys would have a great debate.
I used to debate him on a different network.
Think about this, and I mean, and I think you would probably agree he's a decent guy. Think about this. I think Brian Kilmeade, who we had on the show, you had on the show last week, has written a book about Douglas and Lincoln, and he's unearthed some things we didn't know about that relationship. Now, that relationship, what he unearthed, will probably unsettle some people on the side that they don't want to hear that because they think Lincoln was this, or they don't want to hear that because they think Douglas was this. But the fact that he's gone about this heavy research, deep research to uncover these things, I think only makes the public space better, stronger, and for that matter, the canon better. Bret Baier wrote a book on Grant, and he's unearthed things about him and his family and how he rose to power that will only help us understand Grant better and might put in perspective for those who thought Grant was wrong to end Reconstruction. He put in perspective, Bret did, why that happened, how he saved the Union, how we were able to get the railroads across the country because he made that deal. I'm a proud American. I'm proud of everything that's ever happened here. There's some ugly things that have happened, which I'm willing to confront, and I'm not unsettled by it. And there's some unbelievably great things, a lot more of that. We have to not be afraid of words. We can't be afraid of a few ideas. I don't want kids thinking they're an oppressor or oppressed, but I do want kids to know what happened in the 1800s and the 1900s, and one of the reasons why neighborhoods and cities and communities look like they do. I'm not afraid of this, and I think any good, strong, red-blooded American who pays his or her taxes, they won't be afraid of it either if we do it the right way.
Okay, so you defend Dyson, and I get
defend
it.
Dyson as a person.
Yeah,
I as a person.
But there is a weird, there's a new segregation going on, and it's not just on color, it's on thought. So it's like when he says black mouth, white words.
He's wrong. That's not right. I don't defend that.
There's that means that there's no such, like you can't share thoughts. It won't work. It's like using the wrong, plug for a computer,
It also means you're defined by your skin color, not by your thoughts or
what
your
it really means
ideas.
is we have set thoughts about what skin color should say and do.
No, well,
Tiger
he
Woods
does.
should not be a golfer.
Right.
Does.
Doug Williams should not be a quarterback. Those are the kinds of set thoughts we have. And if that's what Michael Eric Dyson was doing, he's wrong.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is let's have the conversation and not get upset about it and understand that people are trying to make the country better in the process.
Right. Yeah. And How I Saved the World also unearthed some very powerful
Look, you should have seen his face when
glossing over a
when you were
bestseller
plugging the
over
books. His face was like complete, how dare he not mention my book?
How dare you?
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.